Hello everyone, welcome to JS Gigs and my name is Deepak. All that while we have spoken about what component testing is all about, in this tutorial particularly we are going to be talking about the end-to-end test cases. So this is another type of test cases that we have not really run so far, but then we are going to be doing that now, right? So in order to do so, the start process of the end-to-end test cases is also something same. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be sharing the entire desktop of mine, right? So I've now shared the entire desktop of mine, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be running the test cases from Cypress once again. And once I run it, then this time around I'm going to be choosing the end-to-end instead of choosing the component one. So rather before I start writing or before I start running the test cases, it is important for us to understand why end-to-end test cases are important, right? So let me take you back to browser once again, and here at the browser, if you look at the application what we have, right? So we have precisely tested this particular page using the component testing. So once you log in, it takes you to the dashboard, right? And then here you really need to give the ID, and once you give the ID, it filters the appropriate result and brings it here and lets it selected, right? And then there are three tabs around here. So these three component would precisely be tested in the similar manner in which we have tested the login component, which is here. And then once you test this and once you go there, it is going to be somewhat similar, right? So we have precisely covered what component testing is all about already, like reading the error messages or reading if the right color class has been put in place or not, and if reading if the login button gets enabled or disabled and things like that, right? And now on, the reason why I have chosen to do the end-to-end test case instead of doing the component test for the remaining one is because once you click on login, like the way I do over here, you see the browser over here also changes the URL, right? And this URL is precisely suited for end-to-end test case and not really the component test case because you're moving away from one component to the other, right? So that's the reason why I have chosen to do the end-to-end test case for this particular feature, because I'm going to be testing the router. That's one. And also we have already tested the login page good enough, and then for the other pages we will do again the combination of component test and also the combination of end-to-end test, because we are moving from one route to the other and we are also changing the overall router outlet from one tab to the other and to other, right? So this is why I have decided to do the end-to-end test case, and that's what I'm going to be teaching in this tutorial. And now I'm going to be taking you to the end-to-end test case, and then what we would do is we will basically going to be running all of these, right? So all these commands, and we will first open the Cypress test case, and then we'll try to run it, and we will also write assertions and things like that, right? So now, without wasting a much of our time, let me take you back to the code editor, or rather the entire desktop of mine. So again, I'm going to be running the command. So let me run the command npx cypress open, and this particular Cypress window opens up. Here, if you look at this, we are yet to do the end-to-end test case. We have only set up the component test. So let me click on the E2E test. All right. So this is another important thing that I want to bring your attention to. So if you look closely over here, you would notice that I have got these many browsers available. All that while you were only used to see the Electron and Chrome until the previous chapter, but here onwards you are going to be seeing the Edge and the Firefox. So how come these two browsers have appeared here? So the reason behind these two appearing here is also that I've installed these two browsers lately, right? Now, so if you see, I just installed Edge and Firefox, and the moment it is available in your system, and next time when you open the Cypress, you would find all these browsers available listed here, whatever that are installed, right? So here in our case, we have Edge, we have Chrome, we have Electron, which is built in from the Cypress itself, and we have also got the Firefox. So we can basically run or do multi-browser testing as well. We can also run independently, and then the primary focus for my series is going to be around Chrome, but then if time permits, then probably I'll show you how Edge and Firefox testing work, but it's more or less going to be pretty much same, right? So I'm just not going to be wasting time over here. But then if you look here, so all these browsers have come, right? So now again, let me take you back to the documentation, and here the documentation, I'm going to be opening the browser testing part, right? So let's say you click on the core concept. And so if you come here and then you would see cross browser testing. So if you click on this particular bit, you would know that these are the available browsers that you can run your test cases. So this entire documentation talks about how to set up this for the CI and also how to set this up for your desktop running, right? And that's also we would do in a moment. So the CI part we would do a little while later, but then for this particular tutorial, I'm just going to be talking to you about how to run that in the desktop, and then we will come to the other important aspects a little while later, right? So if you want to know more about it, please come over here and read about the cross-browser testing, and you would know how you can run all these tests in different browsers, right? So when you run them, then you will have an option to basically run this in Firefox, Edge, Electron, and Chrome, and then you can change it by clicking on this particular drop down over here and then selecting the appropriate browser that you wish to run your test cases in. Right. So here also, like if you look at this particular script, it tells you that how you can really run the script in a choice of your own browser. Say for example, if you want to run it in a Chrome, and you can basically pass hyphen browser tag, and then so let's say if you wanted to run that in the Chrome, then you can precisely choose this particular command to run it. And you may notice that the command given over here is slightly different from the command that we have been doing all that while. Is also because this is running in a different mode, and I'm going to be basically opening the Cypress window, and that's how I'm going to be running it. But I'll come to this particular command also later on, right? So this is something that you can do. And then if you further go down here, you would know that how can you integrate with the CI pipelines, right? So all of these are possible, and CI pipeline we are going to be covering the GitHub CI in our case, and then we will try to see how that works. And these are also some of the important documentation link that one must look at in case if you want to know more about it. Please come here and click on those and read the documentation, which precisely talks about what are the APIs available within the Cypress document, within the Cypress, and then how you can make use of those, right? So let's say if you wish to run a particular test case for a particular browser, that also is something which is possible out of the box from Cypress, and that's something you can do by setting your test cases in the manner in which it is done. So Cypress documentation is fairly rich, right? So if consider this, that if you have a particular scenario, please do write down in the comment section below. I'll try to cover that in my next tutorial. But then if you don't, and if you want to know more about it, you can just come over here and read the documentation, and you'll be enlightened to see how great the documentation is for Cypress, and precisely all the test cases and all the this is all something which can be seen. And similarly, the other documentation basically talks about other feature of Chromium browser object and what are the other things that you can do. So it is pretty much all about browser, and if browser related stuff. So also the possible browser that you can test is these. And if you notice that lately even Edge started shipping its browser under the Chromium engine, which gets a little easier for all of us developers, because in my personal experience, I have experienced that Edge used to be the most problematic browser back in the day. Ever since they've started moving towards the edge, and when they announced that they are moving towards the edge, it was a great relief, because I knew that they're going to be improving, and indeed that happened, right? So now you can see that all of these browsers are available, and then something that you can include in your test. So they have different commands for different features. They have they have basically the documentation essentially talks about what are the other features that you could do with your browser, right? Just similarly all of these. So you can, if you want to know more about it, please do come over here, look at these documentation. It'll be great. And if you have a particular question, please do ask in the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to answer those, right? So now I'm going to be taking you back to all right. So here's the entire desktop of mine. Now I'm going to be running these end-to-end test cases again in the Chrome. So I've selected the Chrome, and let me just put the run button over here. Right, so now it is running full desktop mode, and let me bring the entire command or entire browser that is open for the testing. And now you can see that there are 4 different tabs essentially available here. The first is the spec, the other one is the runs, and then the debug and settings, right? So if you click on specs, so there are a few examples that gets created when you do the E2E test cases, right? And that's something I'll show you here. So if you come here and then if you select basically one of these options, it gets, let's just click on this particular option. Okay, I get it. So now you see that it has getting started and advanced examples getting created here. So let me just see if they get created here in the Cypress documentation as well, and there you go. Or rather, let me just show you the code editor. So if you look at the code editor over here in this particular documentation, in this particular folder, you find that E2E folder is getting created, and then E2E folder has these pre-examples available already. So one of the examples says advanced examples, the other one, the first one is the getting started. Right, so it has created a basic script for you, and you can perhaps enhance this and then read about what's written over here. And then essentially, if you come over here and look at the advanced examples, you would notice that it basically covers all the test cases, all the possible scenarios that one can really come into play while writing the end-to-end test cases, such as location, files, cookies, connectors, assertions, aliasing, actions, window, waiting, and things like that, right? So we'll cover most of these as and when we start moving forward, not testing from login component to the dashboard component. But for now, it is just important for us to see what gets created when you click on those particular options, right? So now let's see the first example that gets created at a to-do. So let me click on it, and there you go. Right, essentially what it has done, it has taken an example of this particular application which is available in the Cypress IO documentation, and it has run all these test cases, such as like if you hover over these and you would know what these are running, right? So essentially in this particular example, what it had happened, what has happened is like, firstly it visits your example.cypress.io / to do, and once it visits, then it makes an get call basically to look at if these two li elements are available, and then it does it looks for if the first one is the pay electricity bill, and then same, the next text is walk the dog, and then similarly it does other things as well, right? So it is an example provided from the Cypress. Now what I'm gonna do, or rather what we're gonna do, is like we are gonna be picking up this particular example and design our own end-to-end test case, right? So again, let me take you back to the code editor. Let me share the entire desktop of mine, and here in the in desktop you would notice that, let me close it and rerun that, so let's come here, click and click on the end-to-end test case once again, and it has all of these examples available out of the box, and something that gets created from the Cypress command itself, or by selecting the documentation, the first option that we have chosen. And in case of a getting started, let's just look at the todo.cy. So this todo.cy essentially it does is that it calls up one particular website, which is example.cypress.io / to do. That's the website that Cypress has chosen to showcase their capability in terms of what are the features that it can test. So if you look at all these test cases, a similar sort of a test cases we have also written in the previous tutorial, wherein we defined a describe box, and inside the describe we defined several test cases, and inside those we also define another describe, right? So similarly here also you can see that all these options are available. So if you click on any one of it, and that's something which we have already seen, then it says that before each what really happens, it takes you to the example.cypress.io / to do. That's something which is available here as well, can be seen, and then it runs it all its test cases. Similarly, if you come over here and hover over these, this is a Chrome 128 that I have. However, if you want to run on any one of these, so you can basically click on those, and then it takes a moment and it'll open up and run the test case here. So there you go. So now you can see that it has opened the Edge browser, and it has similarly run the Edge browser test cases, all these test cases in the Edge browser else as well. So essentially it covers your multi-browser testing. And let me do another one. Let me do the Firefox as well. So the moment you select Firefox, it comes back to this particular screen, and it takes a moment to open up. And here it has opened the similar URL, the same test cases in Firefox, and that's something you can run over here and can see what really happens, right? So now I'm going to be going back to the screen, and then hitting on close and select this, open this once again. And all the test cases that you see over here are essentially for you to take inspiration from. So you can select any one of those and then do it, right? So similarly, if you click on the component test case, and then it would try to open the test case that we had written in the previous tutorial where we were testing the login component. So now you can see that the login component.cy.ts opens up. And similarly, if you click on it, you would notice that, it runs all of our test cases and passes them and then shows it here, right? So now again, let me close it. And then what am I going to do with next is like I'm going to be writing the login component test cases, and I'm going to be showing how it works. So to write the test case, we are going to be coming here in the E2E folder. Please note that the test cases, the end-to-end test cases are usually written inside the E2E. End-to-end test cases are written inside the E2E folder over here, and then the configuration of it is essentially given over here, right? So define config, you can see that, E2E, and then, we will come to this particular part as well a little while later. But then is basically just to tell you that, all the test case configuration is basically defined from cypress.config.ts file. And previously we had set the viewport height, and now we are going to be fiddling around E2E, right? So let me write down the first file of ours. So let me name it as login, and let me close this file and also open this one, right? So what I'm going to do is like I'm just going to be writing the similar sort of a test cases which is already given here in the todo.cy. And this todo.cy essentially, as we had seen a moment ago, that it takes you first to a particular URL, and that's when it runs the test cases. That's exactly what we are going to be doing here as well, right? So let me run a describe, and inside a describe I'm going to be writing a function. Let me also add this here. Move to the dashboard, and here we are going to be writing py.visit, and then we are basically running our application on 4200 and login. Since we are running this particular test case locally, and that's why we want to test it using the local host 4200. Let's just, in case if you want to write down the end-to-end test cases for a particular website of yours which is hosted elsewhere, you can define all these URLs over here. And in case if you want to configure that also to dynamically take this particular URL from a variable, from an environment variable, that can also be done, right? But then for now we are just going to be focusing on this particular bit, so I'm not really going to be explaining you all that while all those things in great detail. But let me write this inside before each. I'm going to remove this thing here. Right, so now I'm going to be writing a test case. Let's say it should log in the app, and let me write a callback function here. The app is going to be deepak@cha.com. Click, should include dashboard, right? Let me save it and share the entire desktop of mine once again, and then again select the Chrome and run this. So here also we'll have to make the correct, previously we had selected the component, so let me do the E2E and it comes back here, and close this. E2E login. Sorry, we could not load the page. Okay, we'll try to figure this out, why this arrow. Well, let me all right, so I just had to restart the test cases once again, and post which it started to work. So again, I'll have to select the Chrome and I'll click on open here, and then all I have to do is just to scroll down and E2E login, and upon you click it, there you go. So now you can see that all these test cases have passed, and you can actually see the log of these also listed over here. So you can see, like, let's say if you want to know what really happened at a particular step, so you can just hover over that particular step and it would tell you what really happened. So in case, like, first of all, like if you look at here the test body, it says get what form control with the name username, and then it comes the focus, and then you do a typing, and then similarly the moment you do a get input for the other password, and say there you go with all the other things that you usually do, right? And then once you click on it, this happens the navigation, wherein you can also see the URL also changed, and that's how all the test cases passed. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening in all that while. It's an absolute pleasure to host these tutorials for you, and if you're liking my work, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also hit the bell icon in case if I post a new video, you would be notified. So thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be seeing you in the next tutorial, wherein I would cover more advanced topics, and we would also test all these three forms, like add student form, contact us form, and also we would look at how to do testing for the grid and also for the input. More to come, but in the next video. For now, I'm just going to be wrapping this up here. So thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be seeing you in the next one.